program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with a Dog. You make me laugh.
Well, wow, what happened to the voice there? Maybe I won't make you laugh. Maybe Ben Frank will make you laugh in about an hour or so. Maybe. But I probably won't. Unless I tickle you. Would you like me to tickle you? I could do that. Well, not. You're not here. Or I would. Kind of thing I enjoy doing. The tickle is a kind of torture. I don't know if you're aware. Good morning, folks. It is Thursday. Yes, Thursday, July 27th, 2023. Wonderful day. Great. Thanks for being here. All that kind of bullshit that I don't really feel like I'm sincere about anymore. I just say the words. Ben Frank, the Manchurian comedian, will be here at 10:15. Ben's a funny guy with an unusual backstory, and we'll talk to him. If you're familiar with the Manchurian Candidate, that's what that reference is, and I'll let you figure it out later on. If you hang with me for an hour until Ben Frank comes on the show. I'll talk about the Manchurian Candidate a little bit. The original movie. I know there was a remake with Denzel Washington. It probably wasn't as good. I didn't see the remake. The original was good, but it had some really interesting, several really interesting points about it that just made it very strange. If you're living under a rock, then you're probably in Iran. Bad joke. Oh my God. Somebody around here needs sleep. Yesterday, in front of Congress, three intelligence officers, three former intelligence officers, were talking about UFOs and aliens. We want to believe. We really, 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 really want to believe. A couple of things that I want to highlight about the testimony yesterday. First of all, David Grosh, who the former intelligence officer, was asked by several of the committee people about the statement about craft that are not of this earth. And he stuck by that. Not of this earth. What does that actually mean? It sounds like, because if you want to say aliens built it, men from outer space or things from outer space built craft that we shot down or came in possession of. You say that. Aliens built it. Not of this earth. Why are you being tricky with your language or careful with your language? That the one thing that sticks out at me. Like if you believe aliens built this thing that you say you're in possession of, why not come out and say that? Why do you constantly need to cover it up in slimy language? Slimy language. That's what it is. Slimy language. Anyway, he was also pressed to talk about what they recovered inside the craft, and he said non-human biologics. Again, slimy language. What the fuck is non-human biologics? What do you mean by that? If you're talking about alien bodies, talk about alien bodies. You don't say non-human biologics. What the? You got DNA? What did you get? Nobody followed up with these questions. You let them say non-human biologics. Oh, so you're talking about alien life? Yeah, alien life. Now, did anybody, and you can go look at the hearing tapes, because I didn't see one person ask for proof. The thing is, and here's a quote from NBC News. 3 former military officials told Congress that they believe the government knows much more about UFOs than it's telling the public. They believe. Believe doesn't make it true. And I know, and I called it the second I heard Grush, whatever his name is. I don't pronounce people's names right. It's very disrespectful of me to be that way. The second I heard him say non-biologics, I said, people are going to jump on this and say, that he said it. That's all the proof you need. See, we told you. He hasn't proven anything. And nobody's even asked him to prove anything. If I came up to you and said, I have an alien body back in my garage, wouldn't you ask to see it? Wouldn't you ask for some kind of proof? Or would you take my word? You take my word? Really? And you jump out, well, that's all the proof we need. Matt Napo says it there. David Grush was a former U.S. intelligence official. Does that mean we can take his word because he has that title of former U.S. intelligence official, and we don't have to ask him for proof? He can just say whatever he wants, and we can just have to say, well, that proves it. He said so. That's not the way it works, folks. And if you're just jumping to that, perhaps I'm just going to suggest that maybe your mind is a little too open. Maybe you want to believe too quickly. And I'm not saying they don't exist. Somebody said, well, several people yesterday on social media, they have no doubt that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. That's not what he's saying. Well, it's part of what he's saying, but it's not the point he's getting to. He's saying they're here and we have them. That's a whole different ball game. Than I totally believe that in the universe. Of course, the universe is so big. The odds are probably that there is intelligent life someplace. But and Billy Wayne Davis said it'd be arrogant to think we're alone in this universe. Yeah, it would be arrogant to think we're alone in this universe. It would probably be presumptuous. But wouldn't it also be arrogant and presumptuous to think that if there was an advanced civilization with the technology to come here, that they would find any reason, anything of value on this fucking dirty rock where we can't even have conversations about things that matter without really getting ugly? Well, what is what is in it for them, the supposed non-human biologics? I hate that fucking terminology. What's in it for them to come here? They're coming here because they wanted to celebrate Mick Jagger's 80th birthday. Oh, by the way, we forgot to sing happy birthday to Mick Jagger if you want to right now. No, never mind. Or bid farewell to Sinead O'Connor. Why would they come here? What's the purpose of coming here? This is an important question before we jump to and just trusting people who say they believe and sit in front of Congress and give you the story, and nobody says, "Can you show me? Can you take me to where the bodies are? You got film? You got and film and photographs are not going to cut it, by the way. But let's start there. You got film. You got and let's see how real the fake film you have it. I hate to be a curmudgeon, and I'm not trying to push non-belief in this stuff. I'm just saying skepticism, healthy skepticism, and questioning these people is called for. Now, Jared Maskowitz asked Grush where the money comes from this stuff, and he said it's above congressional oversight. Nothing in America is really above congressional oversight. It means they're slipping by. They're doing something illegal, but by the law, nothing is above congressional oversight. And bankrolled, he said, by misappropriation of funds. So somebody is stealing your tax dollars. Congress doesn't know about it. And he's making these claims, but where's the proof of that? I mean, wouldn't you expect your Congress people, your representatives in Congress, when they hear that to say, "Wait a minute, this is our ball game here, and you're telling us people are robbing from us and cutting us out of our authority. Can we ask some deeper questions about this? Who, what, and where? Blah 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 blah." No, it doesn't matter. Let's get on to the next question. Really, are these people actually listening to what they're hearing? It just makes no sense. And again, I think we really want to believe. I think there are so many people. Mueller from X Files. There's so many. I really want to believe people that this is enough. These people sitting before Congress saying they believe such and such, they think such and such, or in some cases coming right out and saying we have non-biological. Why don't you fucking say aliens, damn it? Uh, that's what I'd be losing my mind, like gritting my teeth. Why won't you say the words? Give me this fancy non-biological human. Do you have bodies or not? What do you have? What exactly do you have? Don't give me any fancy bullshit. Uh, so I don't trust these hearings. I don't know what we're supposed to take away from it. But I know nobody is really asking for proof, and there are people who are saying, "Well, that proves it. That proves it. This guy said it in Congress. That proves it. Case closed. We're done. Aliens exist. We have them, and they're here. And what does that mean for us?" Well, it would be a major concern if we shot down. First of all, just step back for a second. We don't have the technology to travel to other planets. We don't have it. We can send probes to Mars. That's as close as we can get. Or probes, drones, whatever you want to call probes, drone probes, deep into the universe with unmanned craft. That's as far as we get. We haven't gotten to your video froze. Oh, I didn't know my video is frozen. Is that the case? Am I still froze up? Um, I don't know. Am I? Somebody talk to me. Connection is unstable if you're on Wi-Fi. Blah. I'm not on Wi-Fi. It's fucking. I got to do something about this. This. What the fuck is it? Chrome browser. I'll switch. I'll switch in a minute. I will switch. How about that? But I just want to wrap up this thought, and then I'm going to play a little pixelated but moving. That's fucking weird. This motherfucking gagging ba. Motherfucking. I'm gonna switch browsers and make it really quick. I am gonna play Donna Shannon's piece, so we can move on past this because we have a busy show and Ben Frank's gonna be here. I just wanted to talk about that hearing. Now, remember, we don't have the technology to go to other planets, so anybody who has the technology to come here from super far away, just by that saying that they are more advanced than us. So shooting them down would not be in our best interest. We don't want to piss off people who are superior to us, or beings that are superior to us, and we don't know their intent and all this stuff. So if we happen to and get lucky and shoot one down, like I find that hard to believe, if they have the technology to travel at light speed or close to it or evade all the hazards of the universe to come here for what? So that they could watch my show, maybe? If they have all that and they still get shot down by us, that's questionable right there. How did we get so lucky to shoot one of these things down? What are they here for? But also, what's their intent? Would make me nervous. I think you first you come back to when white people first came to North America. The idea was not to, start a war right away. Hey, peace, how's it going? Can we get along? What are you here for? And then when you find out that, they're the enemy, that's when the war starts. We go right to shooting them down. That makes no fucking sense at all. None of it makes any sense. Lots of questions. All I'm saying is just keep asking questions. Donna Shannon's slightly irrelevant reviews is here now. Let's move on. Let's play this piece so we can move on to the next hour. I will be back, and while this is happening, I'm going to change browsers. How about that? How about that? Check it out.
Hey everybody, it's Donna Shannon with yet another slightly irrelevant review. So, if you haven't
You know what? I screwed up. When the browser was playing playing that video. Well, I blew that. I'm going to start it again, but it's going to be a little different now. It's one of those days, folks. Technology letting me down again. I got to fix this first of all. Let's do this. Oh, he went black, did he? Hey, went black. That's once you go black, you never come back. I came back. Now I'm all red. Everything is fucked up with the technology here. This is one of these days. It's gonna be a day. Too bright. Not bright enough. I'm not a bright person. What can I tell you? Fucking A. All right. I'm gonna try this again. Try to play the video another way if I can, and hopefully, will this work? I don't know. Well, it works there. Let's see now. Can we get this happening? Man, life is a bitch sometimes, folks. Let me tell you. Video file. Here it is.
Hey everybody, it's Donna Shannon with yet another slightly irrelevant review. So, if you haven't heard of this series on Netflix, you're definitely going to want to check it out if you're kind of weird like me. I'm talking about Love, Death, and Robots. The series started in 2019, so there's three seasons out right now. And here's what it is, in case you've never heard of it before. So it's a bunch of animated shorts that are, each and every one of them is different. And each episode is only anywhere from 9 minutes to 20 minutes long at the far outside. Every single episode is its own standalone story. It's not like tied together in the same universe like a Black Mirror kind of thing. But, all kinds of genres. So science fiction, fantasy, horror, a little bit of comedy, but usually the comedy is going to be tinged either in the sci-fi or the horror realm. And you know how you see like trailers for video games and you're like, oh man, that animation is blowing my mind. I can't wait to play this game with these graphics. And then you get the game and then the graphics are kind of like, what the, this isn't like nearly as good as what was in the commercials and the promos. Yeah. So all the animation in Love, Death, Robots is like the good animation that teased you into buying this game. So that's what's to expect. But there's also different styles. So there's like traditional hand-drawn animation, computer animation, very few live actions. By and large, I like most of the episodes. But, you know, with any kind of anthology thing, you're going to get some that are good, some that are marginal, and some that are like, well, that one was just stupid, or that one just plain old sucked. So where is the relevant part of this review? You're like, Donna, you're like giving us the real skinny here. You say you like it. This stuff makes sense. Get this, the series has even won 2 Emmys. Wow. This doesn't look irrelevant at all. Let me get to that. So, in the summer of 2021, my dad moved in with us because he was getting a divorce from his wife of 30 years. Yeah, I know. After you're into it for 30 years and you're 80 years old, whatever. But okay, here, I'll tell you. The reason why my dad is getting a divorce was because my stepmom was not putting out enough. You're like, what? Yes, you heard that right. So that's why my dad moved in with us. I mean, there were some other standing issues, but that's the one they kept telling me about all the time. My stepmom and my dad. I'm like, dudes, please stop. I never want to hear all these details about your sex life. And yes, they would give me details. It's like, shut the hell up. No child should know these kind of things. So anyways, there's your stage for what was going on in my life at the time when season 3 came out. And so we're flipping through things to watch and we bring up Love, Death, and Robots. And we're like, my dad says he likes to watch weird things. And me and Ryan are like, alrighty then, let's go for a ride. Let's see how weird you like things. And we start watching Love, Death, and Robots. And here's the thing. My dad does enjoy sci-fi. He does like hard sci-fi. And he's like a Isaac Asimov kind of hard sci-fi kind of reader, right? So we're watching the episodes, first couple ones, and he's all like, yeah, you guys are weirder than me. I'm like, yeah, no shit, Dad. Don't challenge us on the weirdness factor. You are going to lose, I guarantee you, on this one. So anyways, he still watched all the rest of the episodes with us until we got to the very last one, which was about a giant that washes up, a dead giant that washes up on a beach in like England or Scotland or something like that. So it's kind of like how people deal with the decomposing body of a giant on the beach. And it's naked, of course, because of course it is, because that's how this series runs. And then the end of the whole, and by the way, it's a marginal episode. It's not that great. But it gets to the end and it's talking about how some of the shops and restaurants around there now have body parts of the giant, but nobody actually acknowledges or remembers that there was a giant. And then in front of one of the shops, they have preserved the giant's pizzle. And then all of a sudden, my dad starts looking uncomfortable because there's, a giant-sized, uncircumcised penis in front of a shop that's making him uncomfortable. So we think my dad sometimes might be secretly gay. I mean, you already heard him that he was like how he feels about Game of Thrones. So yeah, it's like, oh no, kind of that uncomfortable feeling again because I saw a giant penis. I like girls. I gotta go upstairs. Okay, I'll see you guys later. It's like, yeah, Dad. Things that make us go, So anyways, I highly, highly recommend Love, Death, and Robots. Uh, yeah, and test your own weirdness because I think it's awesome. So there you go. I'm Donna Shannon. This has been more slightly irrelevant reviews. If you like what you're hearing, please check out my own podcast, Donna Shannon's Coyote Tales, on all of your major platforms. Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Koa Coffee. If you are a coffee connoisseur and want to experience the best coffee Hawaii has to offer, no blends, no compromise, try the true taste of aloha. Koa Coffee produces premium Hawaiian coffee, hand-picked, expertly roasted, and delivered from Hawaii to your door with aloha. From award-winning 100% Kona coffee grown on the slopes of the Mauna Loa volcano to the unique mocha beans of Maui, they strive to provide their loyal customers with the best quality and freshness. Since 1997, Koa Coffee has been known far and wide as a product of utmost quality, and their awards prove it. Koa Coffee was featured in Forbes' Top 10 Coffees of the World. This is the coffee Forbes called the best coffee in America. Find out what it's all about. Go to minddogtv.com/coffee. And then you can run on the beach chasing long-haired, brown-haired girls. She's so pretty. Look at how pretty she is. Turn around and look at me. Ah, you're so pretty. Would you like some coffee? I guess not.
You're watching WDOG, Mind Dog TV.
I don't know. Excuse me, I'm coughing. So yeah, I don't know what you think. Maybe we should get Donna's father on the program and question him about, are you in the closet? I mean, it's okay. Nobody's gonna care if you come out now. I mean, nobody would care anyway, no matter what age you are. But you're 80 years old. Come on, if you can come out of the closet, it's safe. I don't know. It definitely sounds to me like he's got a penis thing going on there. A penis thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But and he's got a definitely kink. It definitely seems like, he's only interested if there's lots of kink. If there's nudity and there's big penises, giant penises. And when she said, I forget what she said, the giant body part. It sounded like she was saying vagina to me. I don't know. I just hear vagina a lot. Vagina rings in my ears. Video is fixed because I changed browsers. That fucking something happened with Chrome browser on this machine, the main machine, not on this one. Chrome browser works good on that one. He's losing it, ladies and gentlemen. He lost it a long time ago. Anyway, Robert Taylor is going to be coming in, and we're going to be talking about Norman. So long, Norman. Mark Norman's new special, Soup to Nuts. I caught it on Netflix. It doesn't feel like a new special to me. It doesn't feel new at all. But I have seen Mark Norman enough that I know the material. And so I'm not sure if it's because I'm not talking about the same new special as Robert has in mind, or I don't know what the hell's going on. But he's here now. Let's welcome in Robert Taylor. Oh, yeah. Thank you for your service, sir. Good morning.
Hey, man.
Now, when you said you saw the new Mark Norman specials, were you talking about Soup to Nuts?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's new?
Yeah, it just dropped like 2 days
I know it
ago.
just dropped, but I was thinking it was on YouTube already, and that's
No.
what was confusing me. Like, why would Netflix take something that was already on YouTube and now make it a paper type of thing?
He did a set on that series they have called
The stand-ups.
stand-ups, yeah. And I'm a huge Mark Norman fan, and I saw him within the last year. I think maybe a year and a half or whatever. And I don't know, man. I was watching it. I was struggling to get through it, and I don't know if it was because I'd heard so many of the jokes, or also the way they filmed it was weird. It was weird. It was like you know, sometimes they would do these side shots and it looked like somebody was using a cell phone or something to video.
I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
what it was. I think you called it exactly right. I I'm not gonna. Sorry to interrupt you here, but I think you're so far. What I've heard from you is exactly my perception. I have seen all that material because I saw him 3 times in the last year, and
Yeah,
I saw all that material. And when I saw it live, I laughed my ass off. And yesterday, I didn't. I was like, ho hum, like this isn't. It was kind of boring me,
I
and I was
think
like, is it because I know the material? Is it the way it's shot? I don't know what it was, but it,
I think he waited too long to put the special out. You know, because he's been touring like nonstop
right.
for a year or two, and
Comedy.
yeah, yeah, Kevin Hart. Um, but also it seemed like, I mean, it seemed like he looked out of place on that big stage in that
Yeah, that
venue. His stuff is more intimate. He's a club comic, and he says that he loves being a club comic. And it seemed like he was uncomfortable, like he was almost trying to rush. It seemed like he was rushing the jokes, like just trying to get done with the show.
I think part of that is editing because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they cut space out, and an editor will do that to you. Sometimes you leave pauses in there on purpose, and editors don't get it. But it, I would be really interested in seeing somebody who hasn't seen that material watch the special and give me their.
yeah, and that's why I said I think I'm going to go back and rewatch it in another day or two. One thing, maybe my expectations were too high, you know,
Yeah,
because he's a prolific joke writer, and
totally.
yeah, and I watch too much stuff, I guess, that he's on. I watch podcasts that he's on and all that, and maybe I'm just too familiar.
Yeah,
I can see a lot of the punchlines coming.
he didn't deliver some of the material as good as he did live. And again, I've seen him
Yeah,
3 times in the last year. The stuff, and I don't want to ruin them, so maybe I shouldn't talk about the stuff, but and just leave it at that. That he, a lot of the material that I saw him do, he seemed to deliver better live than on tape.
it almost seemed like he was going through the motions on a lot of that
Now,
material.
when did he tape that? Do you know when he taped it?
Yeah, he taped it like only like a month or two ago
Okay,
in
because when
Chicago.
I saw him in the middle of last year, he was still like he was looking at notes. I saw him
Yeah,
at a showcase one time. He was
yeah,
still
we probably
working on
saw him
some of
about the same time. Yeah, he was working a lot of material out, and then he went on tour real heavily before the summer started, so he could get it all locked in. I don't know, man. I'm not saying it's not a good special. It's a good special, but I think maybe I had my expectations. I set the bar too high for him. I guess I don't know.
possibly. I wouldn't recommend going back 2 days from now and watching it again or a couple of days from now because it's still. I think you need some time to distance from it, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Norm Macdonald, when he had the Nothing Special, his after
Yeah,
death
yeah,
posthumously released special. Um, I didn't like it when it first came out. I thought, not that I didn't like it. I was just like, I don't. I'm not getting. I'm not laughing at this. And then I watched it 2 days ago again, and I was like, wow, it's much better than I remember it.
yeah,
I think you need some time in between. I think if I would have watched it 2 days after I originally watched it, I would have been disappointed. Still, I don't know.
yeah.
But
That
we
was
need to get fresh perspective. We need somebody out there in that chat room there. We need some of them to go on Netflix today, watch Norman's Soup to Nuts, and give us a review. That's
yeah.
what we have.
That's why I said. I think I was just too close to the material. I had seen it, seen him working on it, or uh,
Totally different experience for me.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, because I watched Tom Segura's special about a week or two ago. You know,
And
It was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I like Tom Segura. It was pretty good, but the only thing that kind of gets me is he's got to the point now where he's making Bert Kreischer and stuff part of his show. Like he references, Bert and all this stuff from his podcast and stuff in his show as part of his show. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
I think some of these comedians are doing too many podcasts. Like he doesn't just have the one with Bird; he's got the one with his wife.
well, he's got a few of them with his
Yeah,
wife.
yeah. And that overexposes your audience. And Norman's special is a good example of what overexposure will do, because
Yeah.
I've seen that material. It is so much more impressive in a room where in a comedy club setting when you're there than watching a theater presentation of the same material when you're not there.
That was another thing too. I was thinking about just now. When he's in the club, he plays off of the crowd more.
Right.
He does crowd work. He plays off. He didn't do anything in that show.
Right.
I think he might have asked somebody, but you could tell he wasn't even really doing crowd work. He was just trying to set the bit up.
Right.
He wasn't even really waiting on answers from the people.
Yeah.
Or whatever like that. So that's why I said it looked kind of like he was just going through the motions of trying to get that special done so he could get rid of that material. He's probably tired of doing the material himself.
Right. Have you seen any other comedians giving like review or critique of it?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
I need to go look for it because they're. One thing about it though, man. None of them are going to be real honest on the podcast. They're all going to say they liked it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even if they felt it might have been off. I mean I liked it. It's better than most specials that you're going to see because he's a better comic than most of the comedians you're going to see. But
That's what my takeaway too. It's like I think he's probably at the top of the totem pole right now. I wouldn't say, nobody has. I never put like one person up there, but in my list of 10 best comedians, he's definitely in that top 10 somewhere.
Yeah. And
his time has come. He's definitely worked hard for it and deserves it.
And it makes a difference too, man. When you're too close to it, if you're watching them so much and keeping up with everything, because I've seen the last two Louis C.K. specials probably a half a dozen times each. I could go back and watch it again today. Either one of those last two, right? It's just because you don't see Louis that much.
How old is Norman? Let me look this up.
He's 39, I think.
Wow, he's looking good for being that age. I mean, I thought he was still probably early 30s. Wow, good for him. And how long has he probably been doing it for 20 years, right?
Yeah, I think he said like 18. I just watched him on another podcast or listened to it. I was driving to a show yesterday, and I listened to him on another podcast. And he was actually saying that he's kind of worn down because he does comedy till like 1 a.m. or something. He said he goes to bed about 3, then he wakes up about 10:30. But he's doing podcasts all day. I think he's just doing too much, man. He's got too much exposure. That's the difference between he and Louis C.K. is you never see Louis C.K. on anything unless he's got something coming out.
You used to, though, before the cancellation, you used to do Conan a lot.
Well, yeah. But once he took control of his own destiny, his own production and all that stuff, he would start doing podcasts when he had something to promote. But other than that, man, I mean, he wasn't. You couldn't see his comedy.
Norman is 39. He started doing comedy in 2006. So that's 17 years to get where he is today. That's not bad. It was 17. I mean, I wonder how long it took him to actually make a living off it. That's what, and they never put that in your Wikipedia, like how long you had to wait before you could actually make a living off it. But I first came to know about Norman probably about 7-8 years ago. Somebody who was running a paper comedy show in Brooklyn. Was it Brooklyn? Or it might have been Gotham, might have been Broadway comedy. and she was boasting of him as the headliner, and I'd never heard of him at that point. And I went to see him, and I wasn't all that impressed. He seemed nervous, and this is
Yeah,
only 7, 8 years ago. He seemed a little nervous, like
yeah,
he's
you
not
could
still not.
tell. Yeah, and that's what I thought about this special, man. A few points, he seemed like, he seemed kind of out of his element a little bit like that. Like, and I don't mean in terms of like his ability to produce or his material or anything. I just mean that, and I've heard him say it before. He's not a fan of the larger venues. He's not a
Yeah.
fan
Well,
of
that unfortunately, the more successful you get,
you got to do it.
it's important. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you make more money. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes the people who are running the business for you, they care more about selling 17,000 seats at Red Rocks than a club or whatever. So he's going to end up having to do theaters, and that's going to be. It's kind of weird that he would have that because he has this antisocial thing where he can't look people in the eyes. It's kind of weird that he would prefer the intimate settings more than because being on a stage in an amphitheater gives you every excuse not to have eye contact with people.
Yeah, but I don't think that bothers him once he gets on stage. I think he just feeds off the energy, and that's why I like doing the clubs, man.
Yeah.
The crowd's right up on you, and you can interact with them, and you can feel them.
Yeah.
That some of those theaters, the stage is like could be 10 or 15 feet away from the first person out in the audience.
Right. That's what I like about the Sony Theater in New York is the first row is right on the stage. It's
yeah,
right.
and a lot of them aren't like that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one. I said it over and over and over. I'm sticking to it, man. Even though I was there when they filmed it, that Dusty Slay special, I think he's going to pop real big when that thing comes out.
I watched Dusty Slay on the stand-ups.
Yeah. Okay.
That
That was years ago, and that was one of the first like big exposures he got. What'd you think about it?
I think he's very good. I don't think I don't necessarily agree with you that he's ready to be.
Where do you see this special though? I'm telling you, man.
I could see that he's very good. I like the fact
he's
that
original. He's original.
and he has tapped into psychological triggers like
yeah.
We're having a good time.
But what you're seeing in his special, man, is like he's clean. He does clean comedy, but he's honest about like in this this show that I went to in his special. It's way more edgy than that stand-up.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even pay attention to the fact that he wasn't using profanity because a lot of his jokes are, it's adult material just without the profanity.
Well, he's really religious too. But in his special and on his podcast and stuff like that, he goes back into his past and he's talking about. He still smokes weed sometimes, but he talks about when he was living in Charleston, South Carolina, and he was an alcoholic, man, and that's all he did was get screwed up every night. And he talks about some stories, but he does some interactions and stuff with the audience, and he knows what he's talking about. He's not Larry the Cable Guy. He's talking about stuff, edgy stuff, man. But he's clean. He's still clean, but he's really edgy.
Yeah, I don't know. That I have to watch. I put it on my watch later list. Why Jim Gaffigan resists the label of clean comic? He doesn't want people thinking of him as a clean comic. And I was trying to think, did I ever hear Gaffigan say anything that I would ever consider even adult material? I don't think so. Most of his jokes are about food and stuff, but he rejects the label of clean. I got to watch it.
He's got a new special that just dropped. I haven't watched it. It just dropped. Yeah, he's doing everybody's podcast, and it's called Dark Pale. And the people that are kind of talking about that saw it on there, they're saying he's going a little darker.
Wow.
And but he's always he actually is. If you listen to the stuff he does, he's kind of dark and edgy. He's just clean. Like he doesn't. He don't
like to be called clean though.
Yeah. But except when he's filling arenas up.
Yeah.
But on the podcast, he did your buddy's podcast, Theo. He did Theo's podcast, and it's
Oh, right.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous though when you watch it. You can't watch it because they just sit there, and you can see the look on their face when Theo says some of the stupid shit that he says. They just want to say something back and roast him, but they don't. Because they're trying to promote their stuff. But he was on he was on Mark. No, he was
Bill
on Mark
Maher.
Maron's
Oh.
podcast this week,
Oh.
and they talk about that. He talks about Mark Maron he said, yeah, man, the people that don't know you don't realize that you actually are dark, and when.
I gotta look for some examples of dark with him because nothing comes to mind. Even the Pale Tourist or whatever the hell that special was.
Yeah.
I gotta watch and look for some dark stuff because I think it, and I'm not the biggest Gaffigan fan, so I don't know all of his stuff. But it seems like talking about food, talking about being fat. He makes fun of that dopey voice he does. That would get annoying if he does that too much in real life.
Well, I think the reason I say I think the Dusty Slade video is going to help him pop is because in this one you can see it before, but in this one, man, he's going to appeal to both sides.
He's an Alabama guy, right? Alabama.
Yeah. He appeals to the people that like clean comedy. But if you could get people just to tap in and watch this thing I'm not against clean comedy. I like all comedy. If it's funny, I don't care. But there's some people that, I don't like clean comedy. But if you watch this, you would never know he's a clean comic unless somebody just said, oh, he's a clean comic. Right. Because the material he's doing he's doing stuff about drugs and sex and
drugs and sex. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear. I mean, you'll hear Larry Cable Guy do some stupid
fart jokes.
Yeah. Or he'll talk about.
I believe the pooping stall, the handicap stall is the Cadillac of pooping stalls.
Yeah, and they think that's edgy. They love that stuff. I like Larry the Cable Guy too, but I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I never even watched Dusty Slade. I would just see his photo. I'm like, man, that's another one of those hillbilly. He's trying to do the Larry Cable the Guy stuff or whatever like that. Joe Dirt, he kind of looks like Joe Dirt with glasses.
Joe Dirt, yeah.
And I watched that stand-up thing. I'm like, that wasn't too bad. And then I started looking at clips on YouTube and finding clips. I'm like, and then I started watching his podcast. And man, he's exactly the same in real life as he is on that freaking stand-up. Yeah. He's exactly the same, man. White trash, trailer trash from Alabama or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But you can relate to the stuff he's saying because a lot of it, especially if you grew up down south, just the ridiculous shit that we do down here.
What'd you do last night?
I had a show over by your brother. I was in Durham.
Durham.
Yeah.
Wow. He's on his way here.
Oh, yeah. So
that's why. Yeah, that's right. I did tell him about your show, but he was not able to do it because he's on the road. He's coming here.
I did. That was the first show I did for this one promoter over there. He put shows on 7 nights a week across.
Was Good Nights? Is that where you were?
No, it was. I think Good Nights is down in Raleigh. No, this was at some brew pub that these female veterans own. They own 2 of them in Durham. It was a cool place, a new place, but it was one of the first times they've had comedy in there. And some of the people weren't having it, man. It was loud.
Yeah,
it was like
you can't make people want comedy. They have to want comedy themselves. Yeah. It's like religion. You can't make people go to church.
It's got potential to play. So he said that the other place that they have is really good because they've had a show there for a while. But I had a good show, and the guy was his name's Corey Reed. He puts on shows all over North Carolina and Virginia. So he actually, first of the month, he sent me a Facebook message with his whole calendar. He says, pick any shows that you think you might want to do.
Cool.
Yeah. And so that's another another networking opportunity I'm in. So it just gives me, and
So you drove to Durham last night and then drove back at the end of the
yeah,
gig?
man, it was 4 hours each way.
Oh man, that's commitment. That is fucking commitment, man.
It pays off, man. It paid off. You got to take risks.
Right.
I
Yeah, no.
drove. I had relatives over there. They showed up, so he actually knew one of my brother's friends that comes to his other shows, and he said, "Oh man, yeah, I know this guy." So he made fans out of them, like 8 people that showed up. They'll tell people, so he knows I can bring people to the shows, and I had
So,
two
but
shows.
after 4 hours of driving, energy wise, now you didn't have to just get out of the car and then go do your show, right? Did you have some time in between the drive before you had to go up?
I had like about 45 minutes.
Wow.
No, well, no, I didn't go up first, so I probably had a little over an hour. Um, yeah, it was. I mean, I
Did you
just
feel in your element? That's a kind of
yeah. I was totally relaxed. I was ready to go, man. Because I got that show coming up Saturday in Fayetteville. It's sold out. They want to add it, and they added another show. That place sold out. That Performing Arts Theater holds 300 people.
very cool.
Yeah, and it's the military show where I'm one of 5 people. You'll like this. I found out yesterday. It's sponsored by Jack Daniels. That the thing is, so we get a personally engraved bottle of Jack Daniels.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I don't even drink, but my son's like, yeah, that might be worth something.
It's just good to. I would never open it.
No, that's why. Yeah, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's that?
Even if I was a drinker, I wouldn't open that. I'd go get another bottle of Jack and leave that one on the shelf. I mean, that's a collector's piece. That would stay unopened till the day I die, and if anybody tried to open it, they'd get shot.
Yeah, but as far as like driving that far, I catch up on my podcast, man. I probably listen to like 3 or more podcasts. That's why I listen to that Mark Norman podcast.
Yeah, I understand that now, but the because yesterday I was talking when I was trying to get back into RFK mode.
Well, that was pretty good, man. You nailed that one.
Thanks. I don't know that I could. Being able to turn it on and off is about state of mind, and I think performance-wise, you have to get into a state of mind before you get on that stage. And I think driving can distract you. You're listening to podcasts and all that stuff. You're getting a whole different state of mind. You need some time in between that and getting on stage so you can get in the proper. I don't want to say mood. It's state of mind is what.
I don't know if you know who Steve North is. He wrote that book, How to Kill in Comedy.
Yeah. I've had him on the program.
Yeah, and I worked with him a little bit, and that's what he told me. He's like, before you get on that stage, you got to already be in your persona. When you're walking up to the stage, you're already in your persona when you get up there before you go on, and that's who you are. And yeah, you're right. You have to be locked in. If you're distracted or
that's what one of the things with the Norman thing and I know this it wasn't true, but he makes it seem like he was coming from running off the street right onto the stage.
That's when. Okay, that goes back to kind of what I was talking about before about being in the club, where the only thing that matters when you're in the club is being funny on stage.
Right.
That's the only thing. That peripheral stuff, like the production of the video. Oh, we got to have a good intro. We got to have something funny, something catchy, and all that stuff. That's kind of I think it takes away, man, from.
It depends if it's done right. Like I was talking to Klein about this because Klein set the template for what's special to be, but he actually went out of his way to do some really creative writing about the intros and outros and stuff. If you watch Man of the 50s, Child of the 50s, Man of the 80s, he does this whole thing where he goes back to his school and does a musical number, and it's really, really well put together and well thought out. But too many guys, they struggle for that and they force it. They don't really have a concept, and then they go into the writers when we need something. If you don't have it, you don't force it. That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. But
yeah, that's what I was saying before. It kind of Mark Norman's thing. It seemed kind of like he was kind of going through the motions in a lot of it. And
Mm,
I understand. I'm not knocking Mark Norman. He's trying to make money, man. He's trying to capitalize on all these jokes that he wrote over the last couple of years, and he's
I
been
think
in
he
clubs.
really loves the art form. I don't think
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah. I'm not bashing him. I'm just saying
Yeah,
and a lot of it's my own fault.
comedy, eh?
Yeah,
Comedy,
a lot of it's
comedy.
my own fault from being too familiar with his material, and all that. So I don't fault him because someone could go on there who's never seen him before and like, oh man, this guy's great, and I think he is. I'm just saying, you from my perspective, if you're gonna ask my honest opinion from my perspective, I think I set the bar too high, or
Yeah, you're a huge Norman fan, and it's kind of, you know what though. I could see that with just about anything. If I'm a
yeah.
huge fan, it's not the same on television as it is live.
Oh no, yeah, especially
Never is.
stand up. Yeah, it's a whole different experience, especially in a club.
Right.
There's a huge difference in a club and a thing like that. So yeah, I think he'll get a lot of good reviews for it. And
I'm a
uh,
little nervous about Ben Frank today. Not talking to him, but his connection stuff. He's so he doesn't have like a microphone, so he's going to be using his phone.
it worked fine on my phone when I was out in
Right.
Texas.
Right.
Yeah, this will be all right.
I'm hoping it'll be all right. Let me get your perspective before he gets here on the UFO thing. Do you know about yesterday's UFO hearings and all the kind of
Yeah,
stuff that was
I
going
was
on?
watching a little bit of that on the news this morning.
What do you think?
I don't have time for that shit. I'm trying to live in what I know about. I'm just trying to deal with the stuff I actually know is true or not true,
Right.
or whatever. Yeah, I have the same opinion as you do, though. I'm not foolish enough to think that we're the most intelligent people ever in the history of the world and the universe, or that there can't be other life forms out there, or whatever. I just don't know about them. If I see them, if I find out about them, then fine, or whatever like that. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not wasting my time on trying to figure it out or
But
like
the
that.
question I have is, what's the agenda behind going in front of Congress
Yeah, yeah,
and not really coming out with plain language and saying we have
yeah.
alien body? Like, what is?
Why are they wasting time on that shit? That's why I don't know. We got other problems we need to be dealing with right now. I don't know. You're exactly right. Why would they even give them the time to even freaking be in there unless they
Right.
can put proof? They have no proof at all other than what their opinion.
And
I got
nobody,
opinions
yeah,
on
and
shit.
nobody's asking him for proof. They want to say, well, because he said it, that's proof enough. Like, wait a minute.
Maybe they're trying to promote the Space Force. They need to recruit some people for the Space Force. I don't know.
I don't know, but what are these guys are trying to? And somebody brought up, I forget who it was now, that if this is true, having contact with superior beings might actually be like an immense, beautiful thing for
Yeah,
solving the problems that we have, like
yeah.
cures for cancer and whatever, all that kind of.
You remember?
But to dress it up in language that doesn't. What are you really saying? Fuck! I hate people that won't just tell me what they're really saying. What did you see? What
Yeah.
exactly do you got? What?
They got some agenda. They got some agenda too. Yeah, but they better remember all those dumbasses. Remember that episode in the Twilight Zone when they had they were getting people on
To
the
serve
ship.
man? Are you
It
gonna
was
give
a recipe book. Yeah, they finally interpreted it. It was a recipe book on how to cook humans or
to
whatever.
serve man
Yeah, serve
for
man.
dinner?
Yeah, they better. Yeah, they better watch that shit before they get on there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. All that stuff is now. Mitch McConnell, you got any thoughts on that kind of what happened? What Mitch McConnell yesterday went to speak, did a press conference, a weekly press conference, started talking, and then kind of froze, like
well,
glitched.
it's kind of ironic that you say Mitch McConnell and UFOs because he looks like fucking ET.
He does look like.
At this point, I didn't even know he was still alive. On the thing, but yeah, man, I can't. You can't be surprised by
Right.
anything that they're going to put on there now.
No, these people are too old, and Sherry Jacob Jacobson, whatever. I mess her name up. Jacoby. Anyway, she's like beating this drum that Biden is just like he's in really good shape for 80. And look at Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's 80, and when nobody's saying Mick Jagger should be president either,
He didn't fall off
and he
the damn
couldn't.
stage either.
Right, but also, yeah, and we don't see Mick Jagger 24/7. He's not. I'm sure he has his senior moments, even though he's dyeing his hair black. He
Yeah.
still has his senior moments. Everybody at 80 does, and these people should. And Mitch McConnell, like I've never been a fan of Mitch McConnell's politics and all that stuff, but it really bothers me that people can't have empathy towards the guy. Like I understand not liking him, but to be happy that something like that is happening to another human being, I think you have to. Not that you hurt yourself by not having empathy and not
Yeah. Well,
human
also
empathy.
too, it comes off, especially from the political perspective, because that's what you got. You got on both sides. You know, you're going, oh man, he's an idiot. Da, da, da. They're just talking about that because they hate Democrats or
Right.
whatever like that. If it was their grandfather sitting across the room and you said some shit like that about him, all of a sudden it'd be, hey,
Yeah.
come on, man. Hey, he's an old guy. He's
Right. Yeah.
life, all this stuff like that. So yeah, that's bullshit. That whole thing. People, they're talking out of their ass when they say stuff like that. Because if it was someone, their relative or their dad or their grandfather, all of a sudden it'd be a whole different thing. So I don't really pay attention to that stuff. You can tell they're just
Yeah.
talking from a.
I know, but I do think going back to a conversation I was it this week? God, I don't even know. Probably last week. The author I had on, Sonia Pollack, and I was talking about an empathy crisis. I think the human race has an empathy crisis, and empathy does not mean being friends with somebody or any of that kind of stuff. Empathy is not something you can turn on or off based on whether
Yeah.
you like somebody.
Yeah.
It's a recognition of human suffering that we're all susceptible.
It's just that you understand what's going on with them, or
I understand it really well because I had a TIA 8 years ago now, transient whatever ischemic attack is what it's called, and basically it's scary as hell when that happens to you. I had that, and they called it a mini stroke, and basically that's why I started smoking weed again, because they put me on they put me on blood pressure medication that made me into a zombie, and I couldn't stand that. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this stuff up. And weed lowers my blood pressure, it mellows me out, and I might as well be a little stoned than be a total friggin' walking zombie. But having been through that froze moment where you don't know what's going on, like I forgot how to talk. You're just staring, and like you're not human at that point. You feel like the whole world is looking at you from the outside, and you can't really communicate with them.
People just judge. They just see something and they judge based on their biases. And it's like growing up down here. You grow up racist almost. When I was a kid, because from your family, no one's born racist. You're not born racist.
Yeah.
But I know, when I first went to California, and I had no exposure to illegal aliens or Mexicans or anything when living here. And when I got out there, people would always talk about, oh yeah, the friggin' Mexicans, wetbacks, or whatever racial slurs they would use. They're this and they're this and this. And I remember, man, I was at a drive-in movie theater, and you could see silhouettes in the dark down below the movie screen. And I'm like, what the hell? And I was asking this girl, what is that? She says, it's illegal aliens. They live out in cardboard boxes in the fields over there, and they work in the fields and stuff like that. And people, and put yourself in that. And then I started thinking, like, man,
yeah,
these people are living in cardboard boxes in the field trying to survive. And most of them were sending their money back.
Right.
To the families and stuff like that. I said, Jesus Christ, man, if you can't empathize or respect what that someone would go through that, to freaking survive and put their family, but you're right. You got to put yourself in somebody's shoes to understand
I worked alongside migrant workers when I was a kid, putting myself through high school, picking oranges. I would start 4 o'clock in the morning, still dark out, and you go into the orange groves and start and pick oranges, working with migrant workers, and that was. And they would just go from Florida up to Georgia, pick peaches, then come back to Florida for different fruit, different time of year, and that kind of stuff.
I work. You gotta go. I know, but I'll wrap it up with this closer. I worked construction, man, and in the restaurants when I was in San Diego. But I worked construction with these guys, and when we got paid, there was a taco shop right about 2 blocks away. We got paid every 2 weeks, I think it was. When we got paid for like the first 9 or 10 days, when they still had money, they ate every day. They were getting stuff from the taco shop. We sit out on the loading dock. They'd eat taco shop. But those last 2 or 3 days, they'd go to 7-Eleven and get a loaf of bread and mayonnaise. They were eating mayonnaise sandwiches, man. Mayonnaise sandwiches, because that's all the money they had for the last. I'm telling you, though, man. I'm telling you.
I know. So somebody said that the other day. They were eating like I forget, might have been a mayonnaise sandwich. And I was just like, ugh, what a fucking gross thing to think about. Mayonnaise on bread. Oh man, I'm gonna be sick just thinking about it. What do you got coming up this weekend? You working this weekend?
I got that big show in Fayetteville, North Carolina, man.
Oh, that's this weekend. Okay.
Best Medicine Brigade, the military. It's me against the Army.
Now, how far is that from you?
It's probably about 2.5 hours. It's an easy drive, but it's all interstate.
Yeah, I know. Most of my gigs when they're, because all my gigs are at least an hour and a half away, but they're all like not interstate, but highway driving.
I was on back roads and stuff last night.
Yeah.
But they got the deck stacked against me. It's four Army veterans against me in the show, and it's in an Army town.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a big Army town. So I'm bringing the heat right from the start, man. I'm just going after the Navy right from the start.
Well, good luck with that. Are you filming any of that? I'm doing shorts.
And they are too. They have a professional videographer.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that Robin. I sent you her info, Robin Phoenix. She's a good one. She's retired lieutenant colonel from the Army, and she's producing these shows for the VA and stuff like that. But she runs a good show, man. She gets the green room loaded for you, the whole deal, man.
I contacted those people that you recommended. I haven't heard back from either one.
I'll talk to her. I'll see her this weekend.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
appreciate all you do here, man. What did I want to ask you about before you go? Now I'm having my senior moment. I forget what it was. It'll come to me. Oh, Manchurian Candidate. Are you familiar with the original Frank Sinatra?
I saw both of them. Yeah, I saw both of them.
Okay. Yeah. The first one, and I'm going to bring this up with Ben when he comes on. The first one, couple of things that stick about. Angela Lansbury was younger than Frank Sinatra, and she was playing his mother. That's pretty weird, right?
Hey, that's how good of an actress she was.
I don't know if she just if she's still alive, but she was younger than Frank Sinatra. But she played his mother in that. No, she played Raymond Shaw's mother. I'm sorry, but still, he was Frank Sinatra's contemporary, and she was playing his mother. The other thing is the Chinese guys were white guys.
Yeah, well, I was getting ready to say they didn't. Yeah, it was
fake Chinese guys.
It was like the ones that used to be in the John Wayne movies,
right?
John Wayne westerns.
And I'm surprised that the Charlie Chan type of stuff. It's just so weird.
How come they don't cancel those damn movies?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any problem. I mean, it's
Native Americans too in the John Wayne movies.
Oh yeah,
too.
F Troop guys. Well, Frank DeCova was Chief Wild Eagle. Frank DeCova was an Italian guy and playing from Brooklyn, and he had a Brooklyn accent, and he fucking played Chief Wild Eagle. We don't talk about those things. That is fine, and I don't think it was necessarily racist. I think. They didn't have people that would play those parts and communicating to whatever, Chinese nationals at that point might have been a difficult thing, especially if they don't speak English. But Ben having a Chinese perspective on this, I want to talk to him about.
Yeah.
Anyway, good luck this weekend, man, and knock 'em dead, as they say.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'll let you know how it goes.
All right. Thank you for your service.
Talk
See
to
you
you
later.
later.
Bye. Oh yeah, I'm gonna take a really quick break. Well, not that quick. I'm gonna play my True Fire commercial. Hopefully, Ben Frank will be here momentarily, but I'm gonna get some fresh coffee in the meantime. So, you know what? True Fire is the best place to learn guitar. We were talking about Tommy Emmanuel earlier in the week, which John Dorsch. Did I just have a TIA right there? John Dorsch earlier in the week, we were talking about Tommy Emmanuel and his influence. Tommy's one of his teachers. So is Frank Vignolo, who was also in that part of that conversation. Who's a local guy who plays with Tommy a lot. So if you're interested in learning to play guitar the right way, like a pro, get on truefire.com. You can sign up free and invite musicality. All right, we'll be right back.
Over 2 million guitar players worldwide learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. Our learning tools and massive library of video lessons will ignite your technical skills, harmonic knowledge, rhythm playing, and soloing chops. TrueFire's educators are the best in the biz, from Grammy Award winners to world-renowned artists. You'll have access to an unparalleled faculty of over 300 top-notch blues, rock, jazz, country, fingerstyle, and acoustic guitar educators. Using our desktop and mobile apps, you'll work with TrueFire's multi-angle video lessons on any device, anytime, anywhere. Integrated learning tools such as video synced tab and notation, slow-mo, looping, practice jam tracks, and many more handy controls accelerate your learning experience. TrueFire style-specific learning paths guide you every step of the way. Use our assessment tools to find your starting point, then follow our lesson recommendations and track your progress as you work through your personalized TrueFire study plan. Progress faster with private one-on-one instruction, group lessons, multi-track video jams, live streams, song lessons, student forums, TrueFire's Riff magazine, premium jam tracks, and much, much more. With thousands of 5-star ratings and reviews from amateur and pro players alike, you'll find yourself in good company with the world's most comprehensive guitar learning platform. Grab your guitar and ignite your musicality. Sign up free for an all-access trial today.
Why is my mic? My mic is not muted. Anyway, we are waiting on Ben Frank. In the meantime, I'll tell you about last night. Jackie Martling and Peter Bales, Stand Up Memories, did something a little unusual for them. They had a live performance in front of a live audience at Tied In Studios, doing their podcast. I guess it's a podcast, a vodcast, whatever you want to call it. Don't know how that went. It seemed a little, I don't know, it seemed a little weird to me. Weird is the best word I can come up with right now. Man, that's weak. It's a weird word. It's a weak word. Weird is weak. But it felt like the audience was really disconnected. And why have a show live if it's going to feel like, I don't know, fake? It's not connected to the. If you're going to do a live podcast, and I know the room they're in, which is not necessarily meant for live audiences. I'd rather, if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it in a club. But you know, I'm not wishing them any bad luck with that. I'm wishing them good luck with that. Don't know if it's something they're going to continue to do. I will check it out. My guest appearance on Conversations with Don Sill, I believe, will be out tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. I think that's when it airs on Governor's Network. Don's film, Comic Sans, debuted at the Long Beach Film Festival last night, and all the people from Governors were there. Tony Walker was there. Joey, I'm gonna mess up Joey's last name. Joey, who's been on this program, and I good times, bad times. Joey, Don, and all people from Governors were there. It looked like it was a packed room, a packed theater for the debut premiere of Comic Sans. Unfortunately, I had to miss that because I had a show last night with an author, which, it's what I do. I am going to be ending the evening program at some point in the near future. But anyway, so, I wish him luck with that. I think Jackie has been away for a long time now. I know he was busy promoting his documentary, which I still have not watched in its entirety. The documentary Joke Man, which is now streaming on all your platforms. I think it's number 1 on Apple, or number 3, I'm sorry, on Apple iTunes, Apple TV. I'm sorry, Apple streaming services. If you're a fan of the Stern Show, you want to see that. Jackie's been away for probably about 6 weeks now, after being on the program almost every week for a year and a half. And I think it's because he's a diplomat. I don't want to put words in his mouth. We'll see. When he will be back on the program at some point in the near future, and I'll ask him about this. But I think the friction between me and Anthony Cumia, because Jackie is friends with Cumia. Jackie likes to be friends with everybody, regardless of their stance and political opinions and all that stuff. And Cumia and I have gotten to some really ugly arguments on Twitter. And I think Jackie, being the diplomat, doesn't want to spoil his friendship with Anthony over being friends with me. I think that's why he's kind of distant from himself. I don't know that for a fact. I'll ask him. I'll straight out. I mean, and he will tell me straight up. Jackie's not the kind of guy who is deceitful or hiding that kind of stuff anyway. We were talking about the film The Manchurian Candidate. My guest today is the Manchurian comedian. He was sent here by the Chinese government to infiltrate the comedy scene, to destroy America through laughter, and talk about things in Mandarin. Every video you will see on his Instagram has got the typical microphone in front of a brick wall, and I'm thinking his entire life is spent in front of a brick wall with a microphone in his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in Ben Frank to Coffee with the Doug. Ben, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to have you here. You have an extraordinary, different kind of story. Now, were you raised in China? What's your backstory with the China part of this?
No, so I wasn't raised in China. I moved there in my 20s to work. I had studied Chinese in college, studied abroad for a semester in Beijing, and then a couple years after college, I moved there for a job, and then ended up living there for 7 years.
Wow. And how hard? Because they say Mandarin is like one of the hardest languages ever to learn. Is that true, first of all?
I think in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I think there are parts of it that are significantly harder than either English or some of the languages we might usually learn. But other parts of it, I think, actually make it a little bit simpler. In the sense that, like, I think grammar is very simple in Chinese. Or there aren't most words only have one form or one ending, so you don't have to worry about a lot of like verb conjugations or things like that. So some parts of it are easy, some parts of it are hard.
How about comedy? Now I'm assuming you started doing stand up there, yes?
Yes, I did, exactly. I started doing stand up when I was living there.
In Mandarin or in English?
When I was there, I mostly did shows in English, did some shows in Mandarin. The funny thing is I do some shows now in New York City in Mandarin, so I actually perform more in Mandarin now than I was when I was living in China.
Where now I'm confused. Is there a large contingent of Mandarin speaking? There must be in New York City that I don't know about. People who speak
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I mean, there's a big, I mean, there's a big Chinese population in New York City, and the people who run these shows, they kind of are tapped into that community, and they're regularly able to, fill their rooms. Obviously, there are not nearly as many Chinese shows in New York City as there are English shows, so it's not nearly as saturated. So I think there's still that excitement. It's still something novel and relatively newer, but stand-up has become pretty popular in China over the last decade or so. So
Very weird. Now, are you on any kind of lists? I mean, you know what I mean.
Well,
Government
if I was on
watch.
those if I was on those lists, they wouldn't tell me, so
Well, you can find out at Freedom of. Well, maybe not. Freedom of Information Act is probably still not all that free. But I'm just curious. I mean, because Chinese United States American relations are not great, and
not right now, no.
there's a lot of hatred for China, and of course, COVID didn't make any of that any better. Do you have any unique perspectives on our relations as far as countries and any of that? And I'm not asking you to get all political about this, but your idea of the people versus our idea of the country being our enemy. The people are good people, right? Most
Yeah,
most of
no, I love it. You're like, I don't want to get political, but what are your thoughts on the on the relationship between the two most powerful countries in the world?
well, not, what I'm really trying to get at is people to open their minds that countries are not the people, right?
Yeah,
The people are different than China, the nation.
right. And I think that goes, yeah, I think that goes for both sides, where people, even in America, where people would ascribe certain characteristics to the Chinese, sorry, even to the American government, or what the American government does versus the average American person, and
Yeah,
what that person wants, what that person's values are. I think it's the same thing in China. Obviously, the government has their agenda and what they're trying to accomplish, to kind of maintain their own position. But then you have, a country of 1.4 billion people, and kind of those people just trying to, you know survive and get along in their day-to-day lives, and how those people live, and they're just, reacting or trying to exist within the situation they have. Because a lot of people, they don't think about this, but you're born into whatever country you're born in. You just kind of have to figure out how to exist there and make it work.
right.
So
So how long did you live there for?
I lived there for 7 years.
Wow. Now, when you're doing these shows in New York in Mandarin, joke wise, because we talk about the language and some words, you just have one tense and all that kind of stuff. Right. I'm assuming you're doing the same material and kind of translating it into, are you, or you write fresh material for the Mandarin audience?
A little bit of both. There are some jokes that I've translated that I, used to do were in English or did in English, and I wrote a Chinese version. But there are many jokes where I wrote custom brand new jokes in Chinese for a Chinese audience.
That's interesting because I think you have to take the language into account when you're trying to be funny. Like it's difficult enough to learn a second language, but to learn to be funny in a second language can be a whole different challenge. Or am I wrong about that?
No, you're absolutely right. It's hard doing it in another language, because you just don't, if you're not native in that language, you don't have the same intuition that
Right.
you would have in your native language. So it's a lot of guesswork, and it's a lot of also, trying to cobble together jokes while not having necessarily all of the tools to communicate in that language.
Right.
So yeah, it is a bit of a challenge.
We were talking earlier about the Manchurian Candidate, and because the movie is kind of funny in that none of the Chinese people in the original are Chinese; they're all American actors, and it's just funny about how. I mean, this one's going to cover you up, but that guy,
Right.
that guy's the guy who gets into a fight with Frank Sinatra as a Chinese, cook or something like that.
Hmm.
Uh, Chinese theater and we'll get off the Chinese stuff, but is the movie? Do American movies and American culture have any kind of presence over there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely, with America, I think culture continues to probably be the biggest export abroad. I mean, there definitely is, if you're talking specifically with movies or TV shows, there is some censorship that can come into play depending on if there are any elements in those shows or movies that the government considers to be sensitive. But yeah, there are movies and TV shows that are there that are very popular. Like, I mean, for example, the TV show Friends is very popular in China. Uh, Big Bang Theory is really popular. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of shows and movies that make it over there.
Now, you said you went over there to work originally. Now, so I'm assuming the work you went over there was not comedy. It was something different than comedy. How long was comedy always something that you wanted to do? I mean, was it always an ambition of yours, or did it just happen there? Did you just like stumble into an open mic in China and say, "This is what I want to do"?
Yeah, so I had never really wanted to do comedy. I'd never really thought about doing it. I mean, I'd watch comedy when I was younger. I'd watch some stand up, but I wasn't like I wouldn't say I was a huge fan, and I didn't watch people doing stand up and think, "Oh, that's easy. I could do that," or like I should do that. I never once thought that. But so I originally moved to China to work for a real estate developer. Um, so I got offered a job to work for a real estate developer in Shanghai. So I moved there. That within a few months of me starting to work for them, that real estate developer went under or ceased to exist. Um,
Wow.
Chinese real estate market for you. Um, and so I was unemployed in China and trying to figure out what to do in my next move. So I was like, okay, I could find another job in real estate. I was about to start a new job with like a big international real estate company. And then this guy I knew who was like a headhunter who specialized in like placing foreigners in China in like some different sorts of jobs. A guy I had met like once, 2 or 3 years before. Didn't have like that close of a relationship with him. He just reaches out to me out of nowhere. Like sends me an email and is like, "Hey, I have this job, and you're the first person I thought of." Again, I met this guy once, 2 or 3 years ago. It was not like we talk all the time, and I was just like, "Hey," he didn't even know I was looking for jobs at the time. He didn't know anything going on in my life, and I was like, "Hey, I appreciate it, but I'm about to start another job in like 5 days." It's like a Wednesday, and I was about to start this new job on Monday. And then he's like, let's have a call. So I was like, okay. So he gets on the phone and he tells me, he's like, this job I have, it's with the NBA. And
Wow.
I'd always been a huge sports fan. I'd always wanted to work in sports. And I'd always thought, oh, I moved to China. That'd be really cool if I could do something sports and China related. So working for the NBA in China, I was like, wow, this would be like a dream job. But I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm starting this other job in 5 days. And I'm like, I asked him, like, how quickly could you get me through the interview process? And he goes, 2 weeks. So then I made up some excuse to the real estate job why I needed to delay my start date by 2 weeks. I said I don't need to go visit family or something like that. Whatever. I made up an excuse. He got me through 3 rounds of interviews in 2 weeks. One with the guy who would be my future boss, one with HR, and one with like the number 2 at the company, like the executive vice president of NBA China. So the first interview, with future boss, he was also an American, so that was 100% in English. The second interview, that was 100% in Chinese. And then the third interview with the big executive, that was like 65% Chinese, like 35% English. So we kind of did all of the mixed bag there. And so basically I got offered the job, I took it, and then the Monday that I was supposed to start the real estate job, I just didn't show up. That and I took the job at the NBA.
Wow.
So that was the job. I worked for the NBA for most of my time in China, but a couple months after I started working for them, they had this event that was like a biannual event where all the different departments get together and they do like these big presentations for what they're going to accomplish or what their goals are for this fiscal year. So everyone kind of knows what's going on in the company. You do some bonding with everybody else that you don't get to see very often. But they were like, this is going to be a pretty dry event. Let's try to like break it up by having an employee talent show. Um, and I was new to the company. I'd been in the company for like 2 months or whatever. I volunteered to be on the talent show. I didn't even think what I was going to do. I volunteered.
I don't have a talent, but I'm signing up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then someone was another employee at the company was just like, "Oh, can you do impressions?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do impressions." So I wrote like probably like an 8-minute set of impressions, some of which were basketball related, and it went well enough that I started looking for open mics in Shanghai and Beijing, and then after that, I just started doing open mics and worked my way up from there.
Wow, that's so cool. It's just so are you in I don't maybe this is the wrong way to say that, but I was gonna say, are you in love with the art form now? Is it in your blood so that you could see yourself doing this for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I moved to New York was to, pursue it full time and give it my full attention and give it my full effort.
Right,
Just because, New York is where, the most stage time is. It's where you go to get good as a
right.
comic. You go to get those reps. And I was like, if I want to take this seriously, if I want to, bring my comedy to the next level, this is where I need to move to do that. So yeah, it's firmly within me at this.
Funny, yeah, I agree with you. But Louis J. Gomez, who was a New York guy, was arguing with somebody about New York is the capital of comedy, stand-up comedy. No, end of period, end of subject. And people were arguing with them. No, Boston and other people saying L.A. I think L.A. is a place people go to use stand-up to get attention so that they can get into movies and television. They don't have a pure love for stand-up. I think Boston is a place that is known for some really great comics, but New York has more opportunity than any other place to kind of just grow your craft and be in it and work as much as possible. I hate to get into competition between New York, American cities of who's the best comedy wise. I'm not saying the best, but the most opportunities are lie in New York. I think if you're seriously just into stand up and don't have I mean, everybody would love to be in movies and films and stuff like that, but if you really love the art form. So have you become a student of the art form? In other words, caring about the history and of those who come before you and studying past comics, or is you just got your career started without having to go that traditional route of studying the whole history of comics and all you said you watched them growing up, but you
Yeah.
never
I definitely, I definitely watch other comics and, I'm familiar with comedians of the past. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a historian of
right.
comedy like some other comedians are who just can go back to comics from 80 years ago and recite their, and that's not, um, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be quoting Mort Saul jokes.
Right. Well, Marshall, I knew Marshall a little bit. He wasn't really a jokester. He was a political guy political humorist more than I don't think he would ever consider himself a stand-up comedian. He was a political humorist. Where you from originally?
So I'm originally from Massachusetts. So
Okay, so why not Boston? And I don't know. It seems like if you're originally from there, that would be the place you would pick. Why New York over Boston?
Sure. I mean, so when I was living in Massachusetts, growing up, but lived there my whole life through high school. As I said, stand up wasn't on my radar back then, and after high school and after college, eventually, like I don't have any family that lives there anymore. Um,
Wow.
I mean, I have my roots just from growing up there. I feel a connection to the region, but I don't have any family that lives there anymore. And at this point, I have immense respect for the history of the Boston comedy scene and all of the great comedians that have come out of there, and the sensibility. And I do think growing up in and around that city and those people and those types of people probably did influence my sense of humor to some degree. I think the combination of me growing up Jewish, but also growing up around all the Italians and Irish in Boston, probably fused, to create, that unique sense of humor. But if you're looking at the landscape now, just the scene in Boston, it's just much smaller than the scene
Yeah.
in New York,
But
which
you're right.
say
Yeah.
about
No,
any city really compared to New York. And
absolutely.
there is a ceiling in Boston. So I just thought if if I'm going to move to a new city and have to start over, I might as well move to the biggest city and start and start over, because it's going to be that situation really anywhere you go.
Right.
When you're moving from China and nobody knows who you are.
So funny. I think you have the most unusual backstory of any comedian I've talked to about how they got started, and the whole China connection is absolutely unique. You don't really overplay that in your stand, at least from what I could see. I don't see you overplaying it. You did mention one time in one of the bits I saw about being bilingual and all that kind of stuff, and used a little of it, but you don't overplay it and make it like a novelty, like I'm the Chinese American transplant type of guy, and that's your act. That's your brand. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I do have, it obviously depends on the set I'm doing. I do have a lot of jokes about it, but I try to stay away from either the very obvious, like, "Oh, look, I'm the white guy in China." Like, I try to stay away from that whole thing, and, I what I lean into more is, since I lived there for so long and I have this perspective, I try to lean into more if there are jokes where I can bring a perspective on either like social issues or race that's different because I lived in China, and I can talk about that from a different perspective. Or, because a lot of jokes about race and stuff, since we're in America, either focus on white versus black, which makes sense. Um, and I have jokes, where I address things from that perspective, but then I'll also have jokes about race where I talk about, race where you're talking about, white people or Asian people, because
right,
that's how I experienced race relations for a good portion of my life.
right.
So, it's things like that. If I talk about China, I try to talk about it in ways that are either unique to my life or a step deeper than what, people might initially think of.
Cool. You just reminded me of something the other day, because we were the Jason Aldean song. Try that in a
Oh,
small town, and I went and I looked at my small town, population of my town. According to everything we found on the internet, it's like 524 people. According to the
wow.
county government, according to the United States Census, it said even less, like 484 people. But then I know, and it said 145 houses, and I counted on 2 blocks 125 houses, so I know it's wrong. But I was looking at the breakdown of all this stuff, and it said race, and it said black this percent, African American this percentage, white Caucasians this percentage, Asians this percentage, Native Americans this percentage, mixed race this percentage, other. And I was like, what other race is not covered in
Hmm,
Native Americans, African Americans, it covered all of them, and then they had other, and it still had 2% on there. Like,
hmm.
what are these people aliens? Were they part of the congressional hearing yesterday? Aliens? I mean, what other race is there? It's bizarre.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know.
I
That's
know. Very strange. But yeah, we do tend to think of in terms of black and white. You're
yeah,
right. Now everything I see, and I shouldn't say everything. Most of the today, you're not in front of the brick wall that I see you in front of.
yeah, right.
Um, Most of your life is spent in front of a brick wall. Now, it would appear that way from your Instagram page and all that stuff. But are you doing those reels at one? Is that like your home base for taping reels and internet content? Because it looks like the same brick wall in every single video.
So I mean, there are a few different spots I have. So there are a couple. So one of the main places where a lot of the quite a few of those videos might have come from was actually the main club I was performing at towards the end of my time in China, where I filmed my most recent album, and so was interspersing clips from that album. Um, and then there are one or two other clubs here that I work that also have a brick wall that might be similar.
Yeah,
So
they all look the same, right?
so a couple of them might be similar but different brick walls. And then there are a couple other clubs I work here that definitely do not have brick walls that I post. Uh,
Okay,
content on. So
that's why I said most of them. I did see a few that didn't, but "Goodbye Shanghai" is the name of the album, right? And that's on all the streaming services. Now you can go to Ben Frank Comedy and find it right there. But that was kind of a racist thing for me to say all brick walls look alike. They all look the same to me. Yeah. So now you're a road comic, though. You've been on the road. How is that? I mean, and how much? Are you just traveling the United States, or are you doing international? Are you going to Canada? What are you doing as far as road work?
At this point, mostly doing stuff in the United States just because I spent I spent so much time living abroad and outside of the United States. I'm trying to focus on building relationships and building a network inside of the US just because I wasn't here for so long, and I didn't have all that time to build up those connections before. So it's been mostly traveling throughout the US. But yeah, when I moved here a couple of years ago, was starting over in the sense that I didn't have any like road connections or connections in New York here, so it was just 100% starting from basically nothing.
Yeah. You're very good. I don't say that to everybody, just and I'm not blowing smoke. From what I've seen, I think you're very good. I expect the big things from you, as far as career wise and notoriety and all that kind of stuff. But you talk about your album that's out. Special, well, and people call them specials, all no matter what it is, whether it's special or not,
Or
and we
not.
call them specials. Are you looking forward to doing, or any plans for doing a like long form video of like the album type thing that you just put out?
So that album, I do have video of it, that I filmed, but, at the time that I recorded it, I wasn't really sure if I was gonna put that out as an album, and then really one of the basically, those were my farewell shows in Shanghai. That's why I called it Goodbye Shanghai. So those were, like, my last shows that I did in Shanghai before I moved, and one of them in particular just turned out to be like a great show, like one of the best shows I've ever done, and one of the greatest crowds I've ever performed to. And it was so good that I was almost like, I have to put this out. And
Right.
plus, since I was moving back, a lot of those jokes weren't going to make sense to keep doing anyway. And it was just nice to like turn the page and be like, I was going to do some of those jokes to like get me started in New York just to have some material. But within a few months, and especially once I put out the album, then I was just like, okay, I'm only doing jokes I've written since I've moved to New York. I've totally turned the page. But so I um, put it out as an audio album just because I was able to get someone to do the sound engineering to make the quality a little better. So I filmed it. We only filmed it with one camera though, so it's not really great in terms of long
Yeah.
video to only have one camera. So that's why I've been putting it out in clips, just because if you have, one camera for a 1 minute clip, that's fine. For an hour special, one
Right. It
take.
makes him editing almost impossible when you only have one
No,
camera.
you can't do any editing, and it just makes it boring for the person watching. I mean, maybe at some point,
I
um,
wonder. Because, I don't know if you're familiar with Philip DeFranco, who does YouTube videos, but Philip DeFranco uses that Max Headroom style of like he's talking really fast and sharp cuts that are cuts, but for his audience, they've become accustomed to that. I wonder if that would work in comedy, like if you did something like that and edited it like really. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying you should do that. You made
Right.
me curious about that. What is your status with the World Series of Comedy at this point? Are you in the next round, or do you even know if you're in the next round, the next city, or
Yeah, so like with the World Series of Comedy, for like people who aren't involved in it, it's a little confusing in terms of how it works.
yeah?
But uh, um,
I've asked 4 times. Robert Taylor, who's a
right.
contributor, and then I had Jason, who is one of the judges, and I've
Oh,
asked them, and they've both clarified it for me 4 times now, and I still don't understand, which is why I'm
all
asking
right.
you.
Yeah, no, the way I would explain it is it's two separate things. There's the main event in Las Vegas at the end of the season, the big main event. But then separate from that, beforehand, there are what are called satellite competitions. And they have 12 satellite competitions that tour around the country in different cities. Now, these two things are basically separate from each other, but they're related in a sense. The 12 satellite competitions are standalone competitions. I kind of think of them like stops on the PGA Tour.
Right.
Like
Good analogy.
they're connected to like a point system that goes throughout the season, but at the same time, they're individual events. So if you win the Bell Canadian Open, you won the Bell Canadian Open, regardless of how you do next week at the next event.
Right.
So the satellite competitions are like that. They're held in these different cities, and you can win those competitions outright or be a finalist, a top three, a semifinalist, or whatever. And that's, in stone if it happens. Then when you go to the next satellite competition, you're starting over in that competition that doesn't carry over from the previous one. But there is a point system associated with how well you do in each event. And then that, depending on how you do in each of the satellites, that can influence your ranking for the main event later on in the year and how you get seeded in that tournament
Right.
and what round you get placed into, what show you get put on, and all of that stuff.
All right.
So it's confusing. They're related, but they are also separate things.
Okay, a question though. Now, let's say you have the most points going into Vegas. Does that mean you open the show or headline or close the show, or do you get to pick your spot? Because I would think getting to pick it would be the prime perk for wanting to get the most points. So that because I don't think either the opening spot or the last spot are the prime spots. You want to be kind of like right in the middle, right? Or
Yeah, you usually want to be in the middle. Now, I don't think for those shows, I don't think they let you pick which where in the lineup you go, but for these competitions there is like the first round is like called kind of the wild card round, and then there's the second round after that. If you get a certain amount of points, you have like an automatic buy into the second round and you get to bypass the wild card.
wow.
So that's kind of the reward. And sometimes depending on if you have a certain amount of points, maybe you have a preference with your schedule, maybe you can have preference for what night you go on. But you don't know what other comedians are going to be on that night. You don't know where you're going to go in the lineup. So there's only so much you can control. Really, the big thing for getting the points is to make sure that you get into the second round and don't have to go through the wild card. That's really
Okay. Have you benefited a lot from feedback and from the judges, or does that not really affect how you approach what you do?
no, I definitely have benefited a lot from doing the competition and seeing what the judges have to say, because part of a competition like that or any competition is learning what the judges look for, because in every comedy competition it's not the same. Some of the judges are looking for different things, and if you don't do well in the competition, doesn't always mean you're not a great comic, but you might have not done kind of what they're looking for or what they think is the best. Everyone has different tastes. So with these guys, with the World Series of Comedy doing it more and more, when you get feedback from them, or if you see how you do one time versus another time, you start to learn, oh, okay, they don't like when comedians do this, or they do like when comedians do this. And then you start to kind of use that information to help you do better in the competition.
Yeah, my concern there is, and my partner in my band does this often. He will play for an audience of one. Like if he knows he's trying to impress one person in the room, and rather than focus on the entire room. And I think that can really distract you from having your best performance. If you have that in the back of your mind, like this, I got to impress these judges. You're going
Mm,
to be playing for the judges rather than playing for the audience a lot. It's just human nature, whether you're consciously doing that or subconsciously doing that. I think that
yeah.
happens. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And I do think there's a way to balance that where, if you have a lot of material and you have a good act, you can go through your act and say, okay, I know all this stuff is good, and this will do well, or this should do well in front of an audience. But what's going to do well in front of an audience that's also going to go over favorably with these judges, and kind of
Right.
figure that out. But also, I will say, in particular with the World Series of Comedy, one thing, no competition is perfect, but what I do give them credit for a lot of the time is, in most of the rounds, they are not necessarily a slave to audience reaction. A lot of comedy competitions, there's a lot of luck in terms of where you go in the lineup, and they'll just look at, oh, who got the best audience reaction and put that person through. But the people at the World Series, they know sometimes audience reaction just depends on where in the lineup you went. Also, some audiences might not give a certain joke the credit that they think it deserves. They might look at you and be like, oh, we thought your jokes and your performance was better than this other person, even though that person got more reaction from the audience.
Right.
So I do give them credit in that respect, that they do,
Of
for the
course,
most part.
because different audiences, different energy, different night. You can see that no matter if you're experienced enough and have been to enough comedy shows, you can see that audiences will react differently depending on the night, depending on the energy, depending on the room, all that kind of stuff to different comics. So you can't really gauge that, but as much as if you're a novice at these kind of things, you would generally say, well, they laughed a lot louder for this guy, so he must be better. That's
Mm,
not always the case.
no.
Um, we have to say goodbye to Gov's comedy podcast now. Gov's book Ben Frank. I mean, go to Ben Frank Comedy, book him at the clubs on Long Island, and
Oh,
Sticks and Stones also get him in there.
I
Time
would
for
I
Ed
would
to
lo I'd
knock
love